Salutations everyone! Welcome to the first episode of the Character Chronicles. This is the show where I look at characters in fiction and try and work out what makes them tick. I'm your host, Feeso, and today we're going to be looking at Himura Kenshin. And we'll try and answer the question, is he a complex hero, or does he have a hero complex? This will be the first of a series of episodes based on this franchise, as I am hoping to make episodes based on Tomoe, Enishi, Shishio, and Sojiro in the near future. Before we get started, I feel compelled to briefly address the recent controversy around the author of the series, Nobuhiro Watsuki. I am of course deeply disappointed in him. This news has had a huge impact on the fanbase and has thrown the future of the series and his legacy into question. That being said, in my opinion, the manga is no less entertaining or thought-provoking now than it was before. I believe that if one feels that they are able to separate the work from their feelings of Watsuki, then they should be allowed to do so without ridicule or critique. I appreciate for some, however, this will be hard, so if you would rather not discuss this series, please stay tuned as I'll be moving on to other fictional properties in the near future. As for Watsuki himself, I assume that he'll be punished by society and that his reputation will be permanently damaged. If he feels remorse, I expect that there will be a long road ahead of him before he can achieve redemption, not unlike Kenshin himself. But if you are able to separate your enjoyment of the series like I can, I hope that you enjoyed the following episode.
A sword is a weapon. The art of swordsmanship is learning how to kill. That is the truth. What Miss Kaoru says is sweet and innocent talk that only those whose hands have never been stained with the blood of men can believe. But to tell you the truth, I much prefer Miss Kaoru's sweet and innocent talk over the truth. Indeed I do. I hope that someday her words will become the truth for all of us to live by.
The manga will be our primary source of information. However, I will also draw from the Trust and Betrayal OVA for non-contradictory additional details to further flesh out our understanding of Kenshin as a character. We'll be looking at Kenshin's life in chronological order. This will hopefully make it easier to understand his actions over the course of the main story. So our first segment will revolve around what little information we have of Kenshin's youth, with a larger historical context of the period. After that, we'll shift our attention to his life as a Hitakiri and explore his relationship with Yukishiro Tomoe. From there, we'll glance at his years as a wanderer, leading to his decision to settle at the Kamiya Dojo. And from there, we'll tackle the major events of the Kyoto and Jinshu arcs. And that will be our episode, with a few audio clips to break up the various segments. So, let us start with the very beginning.
Death no longer terrifies man. The smell of blood is as common as the smell of white plums. So, he creates slavery and savagery, which surpass the horror of dying. These can only be fought with more bloodshed, and the cycle never ends.
The Tokugawa shogunate had ruled Japan for over 200 years, ever since the end of the Warring States period. The shogunate had achieved an uneasy peace during their reign. They accomplished this by demanding a rigid class structure and enforcing an isolation from the outside world. This was because Western influence was considered an unstable element. Thus, with certain exceptions, foreign knowledge and Christianity were completely demonized. The country became largely stagnant in terms of technological advancement. However, this was a period of immense growth for Japanese culture. Trade had increased to the point where merchants had become more wealthy than some samurai, who admittedly lacked purpose without the constant wars. Theater productions, works of art, and poetry became far more common. However, most of these benefits were contained to the larger cities such as Edo. There was still a massive class divide, with the daimyo and samurai on top. This meant that many peasants lived in absolute poverty. These living conditions often led to acts of violence or outbreaks of disease. Tensions built up gradually over the Tokugawa's rule, especially in the south, where many were upset that the emperor had become merely a figurehead. This all reached boiling point in 1853 when Commodore Perry arrived with his black ships, demanding that the shogunate open the country to foreign trade or face the naval might of the United States. The shogunate acquiesced, which enraged the southerners as the emperor was not consulted. These people considered Japan sacred and thought it was their duty to expel the barbarians and restore the emperor to power. And so the seeds of rebellion were planted long before Hidekari Batosai arrived on the scene.
In 1853, Perry arrived off the coast of Uraga and demanded we open trade to foreign countries. This was known as the arrival of the Black Ships. The incident became the trigger for the violence of the revolution, and the terror and the doubt still reside deep inside the hearts of the people of Edo, even now that the city is called Tokyo.
It was during these troubling times Kenshin was born. His birth name was Shinta, and he was born in 1850, right as the situation was about to go from turbulent to unsustainable. Shinta's childhood was likely deeply impacted by the social and political environment. As he later recalls during the Remembrance arc, his family was extremely poor, always worrying about food. We know very little about Shinta's parents, apart from the fact that his father was a farmer. Shinta often helped his father tend to crops at a very young age. This might suggest that they could not afford assistance. By his own admission, Shinta had never really had the opportunity to live a carefree lifestyle, and thus never really appreciated the joy of just living a peaceful life. The one possession of his that we are familiar with from his life before meeting Hiko Seijiro is his toy spinner. This item was used a lot in Trust and Betrayal as a symbolic image of Shinta's state of mind during the Bakumatsu. It also represented his innocence and naivety. For Shinta himself, keeping hold of the item for so long, it's clear that the item probably possesses some sort of sentimental value for him. It is very possible that it was one of the only items which his parents could afford to buy him, and by extension it was likely one of his few sources of conventional childhood joy. When Shinta was 7 years old, his parents tragically died due to a cholera outbreak. Subsequently, he was captured and sold into slavery. It is unclear whether he was caught immediately after his parents' death, or whether he survived on his own for a while. Either way, it is likely that he witnessed some disturbing things for someone his age.
Don't look! Don't look! Please, spare this child! Spare this child! Spare this child! Spare this child! Please spare this child!
Before moving on, we should discuss the existence of Kenshin's siblings. We know that they must exist due to certain panels in the manga, however we are completely unsure what his relationship with them was, and whether or not they're even alive right now. It's most likely that they died of the same cholera outbreak that took Shinta's parents, however we can't discount the possibility that they survived and Shinta was somehow separated from them, or perhaps they are the ones who sold Kenshin into slavery. Regardless, it is completely unclear what happened to them. However, we get a bit more insight in the Trust and Betrayal OVA, which specifies that Kenshin had a sister. Now there are some obvious parallels one could draw with Anishi later on in the series, and I think that that's the main reason the anime staff decided to specify the gender of his sibling. Now, until we get more information about this, I can't really comment on how it could affect his character, other than generalizations that siblings tend to be protective of each other and have rivalries, and having siblings will allow him to empathize a lot more with the characters throughout the series. A year after his parents' death, Shinta found himself being transported by slavers near the outskirts of Kyoto. During the journey, Shinta was befriended by 3 slave women, Kasami, Akane, and Sakura. All 3 had sold themselves into slavery as payment for debts. It is likely that they pitied Shinta for being condemned to such a harsh life by force at such a young age. During their journey, the group was raided by bandits who killed everyone, slaves and slavers alike. Shinta, being the only boy among the group, believed that it was his duty to protect the others. That, along with the fact that he had no loved ones left, meant that he was willing to sacrifice himself for the others. He picked up the nearest sword and attempted to defend the group. However, he was restrained by the 3 women, 2 of which died begging the bandits to spare the child, while the 3rd was executed after telling Shinta that he must live on, at least until he was old enough to decide what he wanted to do with his life. This desire to protect the weak, and the willingness to sacrifice himself to do so, is a key feature of Kenshin's character arc, which likely started here, and was probably enhanced by his failure here. We see throughout the rest of the series that Kenshin really holds himself to a high standard, and if he ever fails to protect someone or something, he blames himself before all others. If Kenshin does have a hero complex, this traumatic event would be the reason. The bandits approached Shinta with the intention of finishing him off. However, at that moment, Seijiro Hiko arrived. He used Hiten Mitsurugi to slay the bandits with ease, and he told the boy that his family was avenged, and that he should seek help from the local villagers. After this, Hiko leaves for the night, intending to return in the morning. However, Shinta decides to bury everyone instead of going to the village. When Hiko discovers this, he asks about Shinta's story, and why he decided to bury the bandits as well. Shinta replies, saying that they were all victims. This shows a wisdom and calmness that is atypical for most children his age. Looking at Enichi, for example, we can see that a typical reaction to this kind of event is fury and depression. However, these emotions are nowhere to be found within Shinta. Given later examples in his life, it is possible that he decided to blame himself before he blamed the bandits, redirecting his anger internally rather than externally. Regardless, it is clear to the reader that even at 8 years old, Shinta is extremely empathetic to others. This character trait might have come easier to him due to his relatively modest and rough upbringing. After this exchange, Shinta laments that he is unable to present flowers at the graves of Kasume, Akane, and Sakura. At this point, Hiko had made up his mind. Impressed by the boy's strength and kindness, he decided to take him on as a student of Hiten Mitsurugi. He poured sake over the graves as a form of tribute. He asked Shinta for his name, and upon hearing it, Hiko decided that the name was too soft for a swordsman. He elected to rename the boy Kenshin.
Tell me your name.
Shinta.
A child's name. Too soft for a swordsman. As of today, you are Kenshin.
Kenshin.
Thank you for watching part 1 of this analysis. It might be a while before you see part 2, however I'll be sure to link it when it's finished. In the meantime, please check out my other videos, and if you liked what you saw here, please subscribe for more content. And if you want to discuss more things Rurouni Kenshin, there is a link to a Discord server below where you can do just that. Until next time, so long and farewell.